To exist in a world like our own is both a blessing yet a tragedy. There are so many things we know, yet not all of them are desirable knowledge. Many things that we are able to learn may not leave us unhinged. The world's inner machinations are filled with terrible concepts and ideas that would leave anyone mad and insane, to forever scream at the bottom of the abyss as they cannot handle the newly learned knowledge. This sort of eldritch understanding can be deciphered only by the few who've armored their wills against such forces. The Illusionists are the few who are able to do so. Our tale begins in the resting waters of the Cardinal Crossing, where the cool breeze of the royal woods meets with the biting heat of the Sea of Dust. Stowed away from the eyes of wanderers lies a Castellan mage sanctum. Among the peaceful chattering and crackling fireplace, the library is among the most popular places within the hall. A mage in training chooses their book of choice, peeling it from the wooden shelves as the neat row of books had now been disturbed. They had chosen the hidden hall to be their place of study, as they themselves had always revered both Tithe and had always been interested in Solon and his religion. Mage training was unlike any other sort of training, where thieves had to be cunning, warriors had to be strong, and pit fighters needed to be quick, while the mages needed to hone their minds. Books for the mind like a whetstone for a sword. However, their teacher Calazar had never taught them anything different. Rather, he had always instructed them to do the same routine over and over again, to study and to practice all day. Despite how dull it was, they listened to their instructor before he had called them into his room. Calazar had told the young mage that they were on a path to clarity, yet they still needed to obtain a better understanding of the world. They needed to think without inner conflict. This had the mage learn how to meditate, to be able to wash away all the negative emotions that would plague them. When entering a state of meditation, they would have to move aside all inner strife, allowing their minds to be cleared. This technique allowed them to think clearer, to think rationally, and to make better choices. This was when Calazar had decided to begin their training as an illusionist. The Illusionists are taught to channel their Tithe in a way to specifically bargain with Solon, as all Tithe had the spellcaster bargain with their mana to obtain a powerful effect. Many of the spells the Illusionists were taught were classified as either charms or hexes. Charms would have no drawback besides fizzling or failing, while a hex would hurt the caster if failed. But unlike curses, the miscast would not be explosive or extremely detrimental to the caster. An example of a taught charm was Claritum, the ability to heal minds. An example of a hex is Custos, to create a barrier. With their training completed, the now newly anointed illusionist had the task and responsibility of being a sort of pseudo-healer. They were to be stationed elsewhere to help the Sigil Order, whether that was to heal mental traumas or to assist in battles. The clergy of Solon had to be present within the confines of the castle sanctuary. With their training completed, they were to depart from the hidden hall, and Calazar sent them on their way. Their journey wasn't arduous as many others may have been. The Illusionist had been escorted by a detachment of Sigil Knights, though nonetheless the climate had still made the journey rough, as they not only had to fear freezing to death, but they also had to make sure that they weren't stalked by howlers. Entering the castle sanctuary, a feeling of warmth draped over the Illusionist, almost as if the entire structure had been enchanted with some sort of spell to keep its warmth in. They had been met by a Rigan at the foyer, who informed them that they were expected atop the stairs for further study. On the second floor, standing at the small end of a flight of stairs, was a Jinn spellcaster, peering out of a window into the tundra. The man introduced himself as Rehagon. They explained that before they can become a true member of the clergy and the castle sanctuary, they are to complete their trials, but before beginning them, they must fortify and strengthen their minds further. This resulted in them having to treat afflicted knights and to assist in defenses, utilizing their abilities and spells to help find and stop criminals. Over time, as they continue to imprison more and more, they begin to feel as if their mind and soul have become more empowered, additionally obtaining a feeling of justice to deliver it upon the wicked. Once they have returned to Rehagon, they are able to begin their trials. The trials have the Illusionists pushed their minds to the very limit, to their absolute breaking point. Due to this, many Illusionists perish or even go mad, either devolving or simply being killed as a result of their mental traumas. What they had to do was relatively simple: work as they would with their minds nearly at the point of destruction. It took a few moments to gather their resolve, but finally, they accepted the trial. The sound of the snap crackling through the air riddled the Illusionist's body, as they began to hear whispers and mild whimpering. It felt as if something was digging its way through their mind, a sort of creature attempting to rip their skull into separate parts. Even leaving Rehegon's side was difficult, as they eventually managed to leave the castle sanctuary as a whole. As they walked along the bridge, their mind screamed at them to jump from the bridge, voices like daggers stabbing them to leap off the edge. They found themselves gradually moving towards the edge until finally, they snapped back into reality and continued onwards. As they traversed the land, the mental agony of having to prove that they were able to function under such conditions was no simple task. They begged for their life in front of those who simply passed by, contemplated murdering a man who had fallen unconscious. They even saw a whimpering creature in the corner of their eye. They did attempt to investigate this creature, and once they did, their sight exploded into a haze of saturated reds and loud screams pulsated through their mind. The Illusionist had managed to apprehend a criminal, and managed to deliver a potion to someone within the central sanctuary. However, as they left, their mind once more drifted as a result of their insanity. The screams in their mind threw them off the edge of the tree, and into the lake below. Thankfully, they managed to land in water, rather than plummeting to their doom like in many other possible circumstances. They eventually were able to return to the castle sanctuary, and as they crossed through the barrier with their robes dirtied, bloodied, and soaked, nearly freezing them to death in the tundra, the ascent up the stairs towards Rehegon made them hopeful. But to possibly fail or even be told that they hadn't finished their trials yet, had the Illusionist fearful. Though they had completed them, Rehegon said nothing, but instead snapped his fingers once more, and as they arrived, the voices, screams, and whispers dispersed from the Illusionist's mind. A wave of relief washed over them as they could finally think once more again. As a matter of fact, their mind was completely cleansed. Any sort of inner strife or conflict they may have had lingering within was all gone. They were absolutely pure of mind. Once they were satisfied, Rehegon had made note of their imminent lessons. As a result of their trials, the Illusionists had been given the title of Master Illusionist. Master Illusionists, or Mind Mages as they can be referred to as, are a sort of clergy to Solon. They are a branch of mages who specifically tie in their tithe practice with religious techniques. The name Illusionists may throw many off guard, as the Illusionists do not truly create illusions. Rather, it is an homage to their mastery of the mind. As a result of this, the Illusionists are considered to be a supporting backbone for many of Gaia's heroes, as they themselves heal them, and have to delve into the darkest pits alongside them. Nevertheless, Illusionists are formidable individuals as they themselves are able to stand against some of the greatest hordes this world has ever seen.